Hey, this is Mike Casu, and you're listening to the Brute Strength Podcast. This week's guest is Dr. Andy Galpin. On this show, we talk about his new book, Unplugged, Evolve from Technology to Upgrade Your Fitness, Performance, and Consciousness. Specifically, we talk about how to overcome reliance on technology, whether it be wearables or apps on your phone. We talk about what flow state is and how to get into it, as well as the physiological response of getting into nature. Whether you're someone that just wants to perform at an elite level, just do better in the gym, or live a happier and more present life, this is a great episode for you. Enjoy the show. Hey, this is Mike Casu, and you're listening to the Brute Strength Podcast. I am here with Dr. Andy Galpin, the co-host of the Barbell Shrugged podcast and professor at Cal State Fullerton. Andy, thank you so much for making some time for me, brother. I'm looking forward to this.
Yeah, likewise, man. It's a real pleasure to be on here talking to you.
So, what we were just talking about before we started is where I want to start this show. So, you teach graduate and senior level classes to exercise science students in everything from sports nutrition to strength and conditioning to everything in between. Yet you chose to write your first book on unplugging, which I think is a very interesting topic given all of the things that you could have written about. Do you remember the conversation that sparked the idea for this book, or at least your involvement in it?
Yeah, exactly. It's the whole book was really Brian McKenzie's idea, and Brian is a coach for the most part. He's a movement guy. He's a practitioner, and I do some of that stuff, and I've got an athletic background myself, and I work with athletes still to this day. I'm really more of a scientist and a teacher. And he approached me about the idea, and he's like, let's do a book together. And I was not interested at all in writing a book. Mm-hmm. I could not have been less interested for 1,000 reasons. But his concept, I thought, was really good in terms of, well, what if we take something like this and we can look at it from both the coaching and the scientific perspective, but have a unified voice? And that appealed to me because one of the things that I focus on in my career, and one of the things that has been something I preached when I was interviewing for my jobs is I want to spend at least equal amount of time doing research as well as transmitting it or disseminating this to practitioners. Mm-hmm. And it's not something typical of scientists because it obviously reduces productivity, quote unquote. And so when Brian approached me with that idea, I'm like, well, this is honestly directly in line with the mission that I started my career with. And so that intrigued me. And when we started getting a little deeper and he started sort of vetting out the idea, and he really didn't even have it all the way together. He just sort of had some loose concepts of what he wanted to do. And I started thinking about like how frustrated I get when people misinterpret science or overinterpret these things. And I consult for a decent amount of technology companies. And I would get very irritated with their teams or the claims they're trying to make or the marketing they're trying to make off of it, or supplement companies that I've worked with. And I was just like, you know what? Like, I think somebody really needs to get out there and explain to people the potential benefits and the potential consequences of these technologies, because it's just too hard if you're not in this full time. So that was really the impetus of like, okay, like I think I'm on board because this is a message I'm actually down with, and I think it will help people's lives. And I don't think we're just doing a book for the sake of selling a book or putting a product behind it or marketing a brand or something like that, because I don't even own a single business. I don't own anything like that. Right. So I felt that made me be like, okay, we're doing this for the right reasons. Now I'm in.
Right. So y'all go into depth about how we've kind of grown to this point where technology rules a lot of our lives, and you talk about basically why that is, the effect it has on us, and how to overcome that. And I definitely want to dive into that throughout the show. But one thing I found really interesting, I listened to the Shrugged podcast that you and Brian did about your book. And one of the things that you said is that there's no such thing as optimization. We can't just focus on a single variable and expect that by increasing that variable, say heart rate or heart rate variability or something like that, we can't expect that to lead to an overall increase in performance. What did you mean by that?
So, I mean, that's great. I'm glad you pulled that out of there because that's one of the most salient, important points. I mean, it's funny because we're sitting here shooting this or talking and having this conversation right now, and I'm literally sitting in Audit Academy. I'm down here, and their logo is Total Human Optimization. And I 10 minutes ago, was having a conversation with Aubrey Marcus, who runs this company, about this and how people misinterpret what something like that means. And optimization is something that happens as a result of a balance between continued stress or stressors and recovery. Optimization is not simply maximizing the recovery end or maximizing the things that make you feel good or the numbers that get higher. That's not optimization. It is a very short-sighted approach. It might get you there for a week or 6 weeks or some short range, but it won't get you there in the long run. And so the example I gave on the Barbell Shrugged podcast was just putting some tangible metrics behind that people are familiar with, because when you look at optimization, or you look at peaking, or however you want to call it, it stands almost in direct opposition to adaptation. Mm-hmm. So when you're optimizing, you're not adapting, and vice versa. So if you're optimizing all the time, if you're literally trying to make sure that you're the strongest and you beat your records every single day, that's only going to last for so long. At some point, you have to take a step back and go, no, actually, I can't get past this marker because I haven't adapted enough to it. So I have to go back and do things that challenge the adaptation that may have a short-term decrement in performance, but it's going to lead to an overall increase, and I'll finally break through that barrier. So understanding that concept to me was really, really important, and I still think it's something people have a hard time grasping a little bit of.
Can you use, say, a CrossFit competitor as a concrete example of this?
Sure. I mean, if you walked in and the goal was literally to get, say, stronger every single day, that might work for a little bit, but it's very unlikely to work. And so if you're trying to say, okay, I'm going to line up and make sure that I maximize my recovery and I maximize my warm-up and I maximize my supplements and I have my stimulants and all that is lined up so that you are in optimal readiness to perform that day, you might have a great day of performance. But if you continue to do that approach, at some point the physiology is going to be compromised. That says something like, okay, actually now you're too adapted to that stimulant. So now it doesn't work anymore. Mm-hmm. Now you need to have more of it. And then what's the compromise? There's no free passes in physiology. So when you gain something, you lose something else almost always. And so while you spent 6 weeks and say every single day you tried to get stronger for 6 weeks, and maybe you did for 6 weeks, maybe also at the same time, though, you lost your technique in the snatch because you didn't do it, or you lost your breathing mechanics because you didn't focus on that, or something else went down that would actually compromise your CrossFit performance. Mm-hmm. And so we have to be careful of just trying to optimize one thing at all times. At some point, we need to go back and go, you know what? We're just going to make sure that we spend some time adapting. We can focus on things for certain blocks, and that's very, very, very important to do that. But we also have to keep in mind, like, if I'm getting better at one thing, I'm probably compromising something else. And am I willing to accept that? Yes or no? And if the answer is yes, great. If you have a plan, if you understand this is part of a 6-week plan, which is part of a 6-month plan, then that's all fantastic. It's the problem of approaching without the plan. That's where we get into trouble.
And this is so there's a difference in saying trying to reach an optimal state as an athlete and just trying to optimize for one variable, right?
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, we could even question, like, both of those things are fallacies. Mm-hmm. I mean, there is no such thing as an optimal state in anything, because you know, in order to understand optimal, we have to really understand all the variables, and we simply don't.
Right.
And so it's sort of like, well, optimal, I think, but you never know. Like, totally. You may break a personal record, but you don't know if you could have broken it even further if you did something else. You'll never know that. So you can always question, like, I don't know if optimal is something we definitely know it's not realistic.
Right.
And that can be helpful for people, and it can be harmful. And if it is helpful for you, great. Don't worry about what I just said. But if it's been harmful for you, or it's been unproductive, or you're not reaching there, well, then maybe we take a different approach. And so I want to be very, very clear with the book and with what I'm saying now. I don't advocate anybody follow all of my advice or take my exact approach. I'm advocating We'll step back and really objectively look at your system. And is it working? Then continue on. But if it's not, let's recognize there are other ways and other approaches and look through them.
Mm-hmm.
Like that conversation is really what the book was about, is not to say specifically, technology is bad for you, but here are some ways that it can be helpful. Here are some ways it can be bad. And you can still choose the bad, but as long as you're making that as a conscious choice,
right?
I feel like we've improved. That's really all I'm trying to get at.
So anything you rely on other than yourself, right, and become dependent on can lead to, and often does lead to, negative effects.
Yeah, well, because by definition, especially with these technologies, they're extremely short-sighted. They are very good technologies, but they're not very good products. Their accuracy is horrendous,
Mm-hmm.
usually. Their validity, meaning like, are they actually measuring what you think they're measuring, is oftentimes terrible.
Right.
That doesn't mean they're not useful, right? But we just have to understand how we're using them, and the way you worded it, I think, is fantastic. So let's stop there, because that's exactly what we're trying to say.
Right. So, talking about some apps specifically,
Mm-hmm.
we've become so reliant on different apps, specifically something like Google Maps. The last
Sure.
3 cities that I've lived in, I haven't learned how to navigate the city without the use of those apps. And as I'm reading this book, I've kind of thought about this over and over, but it didn't really hit me until I was reading this book, how dependent I've become on this one app. And I draw a correlation between what you talk about in the book, which is that the same goes for our bodies and pacing. And you conducted a study on some cross-country runners and the effects on their pacing. Can you explain what you found, or what the study was and what you found?
Yeah, so that's a very, very good example of what we'll call calibration. So I think technology can be helpful for a lot of things. It's very good for accountability. It's very good for awareness. It's good for what I call calibration. But the point is, it's only going to be effective if you use those things to really connect back with your own body. Does it help you become better or more highly calibrated to your own physiology, what your body is telling you? If you do it in that fashion, it's very, very effective. If not, it can actually be a massive problem, because it isn't inaccurate, it's not valid, it's not actually measuring what you think. So the cross-country runner is one way I can highlight that, where we had performed a study looking at taper, which is the reduction in volume of training the 2 or 3 weeks or so prior to competition. And we did this with some collegiate cross-country team, and we took VO2 max, we took muscle biopsies and other stuff prior to taper, and prior to the beginning of the season, prior to taper, which was 3 weeks before the end of their season, and then after their season finished. And one of the things I found particularly interesting, and I could certainly go into the results of the study if you want, but the main point of the current thing here was, I was shocked when we had them at the beginning of taper and at the end of taper, we had them run the exact same acute exercise bout. So we wanted to not only look at what happened pre and post taper, what happened, as an acute response to exercise. So when they go through the exact same workout, are they having a higher stress response, a lower stress response? Like, if you want to think of it that way.
Mm-hmm.
And it's crazy. So we had to make sure that they did the exact same workout both times. And so we had them run at like 85% of their 5K pace or something like that for 3K. And I was shocked when we just calculated that number. So it was like, okay, Mike, you run at a 5:25 mile pace, and okay, Andy, you run at a 40 mile pace, and okay, do you run at a 6:12, whatever. We give them these very specific numbers, and they took off, and all of them finished their 5K within seconds of their intended target. And they didn't need a watch. Like, they knew exactly what 6:12 felt like. And if they came around after 2 laps and were like, hey, you're at 6:14, they could go, okay, and they dial it back in the next lap, they'd be dead on pace, or they'd be a little hot. I was shocked. I was like, man, if I went out jogging right now and did a mile, and I didn't have a watch on, I wouldn't have a clue if it was 7 minutes, 8 minutes, 12 minutes, 4 minutes. Like, I wouldn't have any calibration to that.
Mm-hmm.
But the reason they did is because they've spent so much time using their technology, their watches, but matching that back to what it feels like. So they didn't have to have a watch on, because they knew what 6:15 felt like versus 6:20. And they could tell when they're out there running, they could go, yeah, I'm a little high here, I got to bring it back down. But if they never, ever tried to make that connection, between what does 6:15 feel like versus 6:20 or 6:10, then that skill would have never, ever, ever been there. And I think that's sort of the general point of why we brought it up in the book, is they used it to enhance their own physical calibration to understand what it felt like to be at different zones. And they didn't need the technology anymore because of that.
Right. Rather than wearing a Garmin that tells you your pace that you check constantly throughout a certain interval.
Yeah, and there's so many problems with that. I mean, flow being one of them, right? So the science is pretty clear there. You're not going to get into physiological flow if you're continually checking a watch. So you'll never reach the state of mental clarity or whatever you're looking for if that's a part of it. You'll also never really understand the movement. And like, what also happens when your phone dies, or it starts raining, or the Garmin slides off your chest, and you're in the middle of a race. Well, if you never develop that skill, you're screwed. You're absolutely toast. So it's just not a habit that you want to build.
So what exactly is flow, and how does that affect us getting into it?
So, flow is I originally came across that term from, I think he was officially a sports psychologist or a psychologist, Csikszentmihalyi, and you can figure out how to spell that in your show notes, Mike. Good luck. But he popularized this term scientifically a handful of decades ago, and then people like Stephen Kotler in his book, The Rise of Superman, sort of popularized it in pop culture. But it's this idea of it's in the zone, right? It's the scientific word for saying, like, I'm in the zone, where you reach this optimal state of a combination between difficulty and challenge and intention. And this is when time becomes relative, the ball slows down, or you start to see every spoke on the wheel, or whatever it is you're doing, and everything else kind of goes away, and you get that extreme focus, and all of a sudden 2 minutes, or 2 hours is gone and it felt like a minute because you got into the workflow. And anyone who's ever wrote before or done any task, it doesn't really matter. No, when you get into that state, you're like, oh my God, like I got in the zone and I was just so much better. So that's obviously something that feels very good physically, and you're actually extremely productive. Well, when you're constantly distracted and you're looking for external validation on a project instead of being present and with it, that flow state is very, very hard to get into. So if you're out for a run and you're constantly looking at the watch, it's going to be very, very difficult to get into that place of internal feeling that will allow you to get into the mental space that will eventually then allow you to get into flow.
This is really interesting. So does the same thing happen, say, in the middle of a CrossFit workout? If someone constantly looks up at the clock at the front of the room?
Well, we don't have any science to show that specifically. That study's never been done that I'm aware of, but you could certainly extrapolate based on the current data that, right, it's probably very difficult to get into flow when all your concern is beating a certain arbitrary score.
Right.
And that is...
Also, comparing yourself to others, right? Like constantly looking at where other people are in relation to you. Yeah.
This is, almost by definition, the point of the book. Which, like, these are exactly the things that can be helpful. So, for example, let's say you're doing Fran for the first time, or it's the first time in 6 months you've done it or something. Well, in that case, maybe it's good to time it. So, because you don't have any calibration, like, well, I can't remember the last time I did Fran. Was that 2 minutes or was it 9 minutes? I can't. Well, that's an important distinction, right? It's hard to measure progress and figure out where you're at. So it is good to calibrate. But if it's every single time you're doing a workout, you're looking and focusing on beating a score every single time, you're missing the whole point of the training. And you're probably going to struggle to get there, and you're not going to get in the secondary or tertiary benefits of that amazing workout. So we have to be very, very careful about those things. Sometimes we need to internalize, take the technology away. In this case, it's the simple watch, and go, I'm going to learn to feel 225 versus 250. Or whatever your time frame is, or I'm going to learn to feel this position. That's when you're going to actually capture pacing, which is going to actually eventually allow you to perform better.
How are the wearables, as well as the apps that we use on our phones every day, how are they related to our hormones?
Well, that one's a little bit more speculative. We don't have a tremendous amount of data, but we can sort of discuss what is available. Hormones are difficult because we are just now really starting to kind of understand what they do. We have some blanket ideas. We know testosterone is important for muscle gain, but it does thousands and thousands of things. So we have to be a little bit careful of interpreting. Dopamine is another great example. So dopamine is a neurotransmitter in your brain that generally makes you feel better. It's the reward response. So when you get a bunch of likes on Facebook, you get this rush of dopamine and you feel better about yourself. But we're now actually starting to discover, okay, maybe dopamine's not functioning how we thought it is. So having said all that, that's the true honest answer. We can back up a little bit and answer your question, which is to say, when we have the wrong emphasis on why we do a physical activity, in this case, a CrossFit workout or anything else, if we're doing it simply for that positive physical feeling, which is probably coming from the hormone release, that can be extremely problematic because you end up chasing the feeling rather than chasing the purpose. Mm-hmm. And it almost turns up into being, it's akin to gamification. So you've heard people discuss this. I think I heard Julian Pineau talk about this. I can't remember, but if you look at the trajectory of CrossFit, where people used to use these short anaerobic workouts to extreme fatigue, and it was great. And the sport of CrossFit took off so much, people learned to start pacing these things. Well, that was great because scores went lower and people started performing better. Well, quote unquote performing because the scores got better. But if the point was to get a phenomenal workout, you actually circumvented that by working less and getting the same score. And so it's not better or worse, but it's saying like, whoa, what did you do this for? Are you trying to really compete in the sport of it? Well, then great. But if you're actually using this for the sake of developing something at a max heart rate and you actually completed this thing at a submaximal heart rate, that's actually not a good thing. Mm-hmm. Right? You win against your own particular point. So it's things like that where if we're not careful about the gamification stuff, it can completely alter the hormonal response to the exercise, which completely alters the adaptation, which completely alters your perception and how you felt about it and your motivation. So it all ties in to how we are behaving and how we're treating the workout, and if we're really understanding the general purpose of it.
Is it possible to marry the two that you just described, wanting to compete as well as get a specific adaptation?
Absolutely. Like no doubt it can. And it's actually pretty easy. As long as you sit back a priori. So this is before you do the workout, mm-hmm. before you do the week, and you have a specific goal in mind. Mm-hmm. I don't mean you have to have every single repetition and intensity and rest interval like written and planned out.
Right.
But you need to have a goal of what's the outcome goal of this workout? What's the outcome goal of today, of this week, of this month, of this training phase or block or microcycle or however you're breaking it up? And if you can continue to zoom back out and you understand the goal, then you can easily put these things together. And you could definitely do both, even the same workout sometimes. But you have to have that consciousness, and that's really why we put that word in the title is, are you aware? Are you really being conscious about this? Or are you just working out to work to beat the clock every time? Because that's going to be a problem. If you're trying to either optimize and crush yourself every time, that's not going to be good either. Mm-hmm. You're trying to maximize your score in the workout. Well, sometimes both of those are good. Sometimes it's the same thing, but that's not sustainable, and it's not a very good strategy overall. I mean, you're shooting in the dark, right? Right. And if you shot in the dark, you might hit the bullseye occasionally. But I'd rather shoot the light and hit it a lot more often.
Yeah, this is something that we preach a ton. So we put an intention on each of our workouts. So it's basically just describing the stimulus that we're going for to try to increase that level of awareness, because getting the fastest time in a certain workout is not always the best thing to do. Sometimes we're trying to get a little mentally stronger, and so it requires us to redline and quote unquote blow up from time to time.
Yep, and that's great. Like I love how Kenny Kane breaks it down with his mastery method stuff, where he puts percentages. He doesn't work with competitive athletes, but the same idea. You could I do this exact same thing with my UFC fighters, but it's the same thing. So if you look at the month and you say, okay, I'm going to work out 20 times this month, Well, you can start putting percentages on it. Okay, 50% of those workouts, every 10 workouts, are going to be dedicated to improving skill.
Mm-hmm.
Right? That doesn't mean it's easy. You can still get extremely tired. You can be exhausted at the end of them, but the focus is skill. So when you get to that last repetition, or you get to that one thing, and you're deciding like, man, I could squeeze another rep out of here, but my shoulder would just slide out of position here. The answer is always, nope, I'm trying to improve this skill. So it could be skill under fatigue. It could be skill under speed. It could be skill under tension. It doesn't matter. All those are skills, but you're going to default to fixing that skill goal,
Mm-hmm.
right? Or at least maintaining it. And then maybe that's maybe 50% or 10 of your workouts. And then maybe, 30% of them are competition. And it could be the exact same workout, but now you're pacing, you're doing things, and you're trying to maximize and beat your friend or beat your score or whatever you're competing with. You're still not breaking position. You're still not compromising technique, but you are pacing and you're timing and you're trying to be strategic about breaking it up, and you're not going to do everything unbroken and whatever, because you're trying to maximize the score.
Mm-hmm.
And so that maybe is, 6 of your workouts in a month. And then that leaves, say 10 or 20% or whatever the number, doesn't matter, 2, 3, 4 workouts of the month where you can go, this is mental toughness. This is anti-pacing. We're still not going to break position, but if we lose a little bit here at the very, very, very end, that's all right. And I'm not pacing. I want you to get after it hard and fast you can. The whole point here is to see who you are in that bad place, right?
Right.
Build mental toughness or whatever you want to do. So that's fine. You give the person, they know what to do. So when they get, but this is established again, a priori before the workout.
Mm-hmm.
And they know, like, when I get here and I got to make this choice of what do I do here? What's the goal of the workout? Okay, now I understand how to make my decision. I could come back and I on a practice day say I left a little bit in the tank. Okay, that's fine, because I know tomorrow is a competition day or tomorrow is a mental toughness day. So if I held back a little bit today, I'm gonna get that grind tomorrow. So I'm not gonna go home and leave the gym feeling bad about myself, because I know I get to get after it tomorrow.
Right.
So it's just super important that we have these discussions with our athletes, with with ourselves when we're going to work out, of like what the real outcome goal of today is. Is it really skill development? Is it really whatever it is for you? It doesn't matter. But having that established before is really, really important.
Right. I think the problem is that it requires it requires deep thinking on the behalf of either the coach and or the athlete. And a lot of coaches are just not willing to put in that effort, or they just don't know how. And then,
Right.
Not enough athletes are taking full accountability for their training and really paying attention to the intention of what they're doing each day.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, it's really tough.
Yeah.
This is how we get better, right?
Absolutely.
This is how we're able to still get great workouts in and still get improved, but not get broken over time, or reduce our likelihood of getting broken. Like this is how we really get better. So if you're not willing to put in that work, fine, but then don't complain and whine when you get hurt,
Right.
or you don't hit your goal. Like you got one or two options. It's on you.
Speaking of getting hurt, what is the ideal way, in your opinion, for people to approach injury if they're training for life in general, right? They're not a competitive athlete. Maybe they compete in the open or something like that, but they're really doing fitness as a way of life and a way to stay in shape. How should they approach injury?
Well, it's difficult to say. This is a really, really tough question. And honestly, if you asked me this question 5-7 years ago, I probably had a different answer for you. Now, as I'm getting sorted into my early 30s here, I'm like, well, okay, maybe I wish I was a little bit more conservative, and maybe I backed off this. And I was stuck in the place where if it wasn't a super heavy day or it wasn't an exhaustive day, then I didn't get anything done.
Mm-hmm.
And we have to be able to move past that. And it's really, really hard when you're 25 and this has been your whole life.
Mm-hmm.
And I played college football and I started weightlifting, very young age. So like, this is what I knew. And it was very, very hard to move past that. I think with the advantages that we get from all the different implements and tools we can have in there, we can still get really fun stuff done physically, but we can work around the injury a little bit. So I would generally say it's not as worth it as you think it is. And it's even like, honestly,
not worth it.
Grinding through the injury for that person.
Right.
And it's honestly like, it's even funny to hear me say that my own self. I'm like, are you saying this? Like, this is not what I would have said, a handful of years ago, but I would generally say, let's maybe not take a day off, but maybe we can get better physically. That doesn't involve that injury. So maybe we take this time to work on mobility or a different body part, or maybe we isolate a body part or a muscle group, or maybe we get some thermal stress. We do some heat, we do some ice, we do some breathing stuff. Maybe we work on our breathing patterns. Like, there's a bunch of things we can still do physically that will make you feel better. That doesn't require you to bang on your shoulder that's killing you.
Right. Because what usually happens is people just end up prolonging the injury or just making it worse, right? Which if they just take a step back, they can actually improve in an area that before they just didn't have time for. So I love Ryan Holiday's book, The Obstacle is the Way, and just the stoic principle of, the obstacle becoming the way, using whatever your reality is to propel you forward. I spent some time with Camille LeBlanc-Bazinet recently, who had a shoulder surgery, and she's still training twice a day, not using her arm at all. She's working her ass off, while keeping her shoulder completely safe, right? She's doing a ton of biking, a ton of safety bar squatting, really getting after it. Whereas she wouldn't have that much time to do that much lower body training if she had her whole body. So, one of her weaknesses in general or challenges has been the bike, because she's such a small athlete. I guarantee you, when she gets through this injury, she will be middle or above middle of the pack on the bike. No doubt about it. She's just putting in the work, and it's because of that injury.
Yeah, that's exactly right. That's what I'm saying. Like, this is an opportunity to now work on things that you're like, well, I don't have time to work on my ankle mobility. And it's not that bad, but it's kind of junky or whatever. Okay, well, now this is the fact that your back's killing you. This is the perfect time to crush that for 3 weeks or whatever. Like, we can work on other things physical that we don't need to hammer the injury. There's so many things we work on, and now we've eliminated some choice for you, and now it's really easy to make that thing. Or the other stuff that, again, we're not working on, our breathing stuff or whatever other issue we need to work on. That's an opportunity for sure to get better at something else. So I would be, like I said, far more conservative now than I would have been 5 years ago, and saying like, let's just maybe give it a little more time than we think. And, well, especially depending on why the injury was there. If you fell off the rings or something and broke your collarbone, okay, that's different. But if it's like, oh, my shoulder's killing me, why? I'm not really sure. Okay, that's a sign that something's probably not moving right.
Right.
So fix the position, fix the movement pattern. Because if you don't, you're going to let for that thing. It's going to stop hurting. You're going to get your cortisone shot or whatever. And then, in a year, it's going to come back and it's going to be worse. And then when you're 40, it's going to be there for the rest of your life.
Right.
Yeah.
What are a couple pieces of technology that people are using that you think have the highest hype to actual efficacy discrepancy? So, they're hyped the most, but they actually don't work.
Boy, that's a really, you know what, dude, Mike, I've done hundreds of podcasts in the last couple of months, and no one's asked that question.
I'm pumped.
Dude, good, solid one.
Nice.
What I would say are, the easiest one, honestly, is probably the Fitbit, or the general population folks using just those step counters.
Right.
Probably now, the cost has come down, so now you're looking at probably a couple $100 for those things. But the data shows almost 100% failure rate. So if you look at cost versus efficacy, that's almost like a zero gain.
It's literally over 90%, isn't it?
Depends on which study you look at. Some of them show, some of them less. But we found one study that showed at 6 months, 91% of people are done with them.
Right.
And actually, my friend Michelle Alencar just had some studies come out last week looking at the fact that people with comorbidities, so the more sick, in other words, the more likely they are to not use them. So the quicker they get rid of them.
Interesting.
Which says, somebody who's trying to, get your 10,000 steps a day in, they're going to have the most bang for 10,000 steps a day. The sicker, the more unhealthy you are, but they're the least likely to use those things. Or, sorry, not the least likely, but they're the ones who are going to throw them away and stop using them the fastest.
Do you have a theory as to why people are not consistent on that?
Absolutely. In fact, to make it even worse, and I wish we had some of these data for the book. This didn't come out though until after the book came out. She actually showed that when you give clinical populations, wearables, technologies, activity trackers, that those that don't get the tracker lose twice as much body fat.
That's fucking awesome.
Yeah, dude. And these are the people that it really matters for, because in these people, losing 10% of your body or losing 15 pounds is the difference between oh my gosh, you got out of the hospital or you didn't die. This is a huge, huge difference, where when we take a CrossFitter and you lost 10 pounds of fat, well, you got better at, some workout, but it didn't really save your life. But these people, it is. And there's a bunch of theories of what's going on, but it goes back honestly to gamification, where people are super excited about gamification, video games, beating an app, right? But let's use Pokemon Go, right? Pokemon Go was the craze a year ago or 2 years ago. And now you never see anybody playing anymore. Why? Because novelty is super exciting to the human brain. We love it, but we love it for a very, very short amount of time. You get tired of playing the same game over and over, and so you want a new level or you want a new update. What happens is these things can be very, very motivating for people initially, and they get super excited for 2 or 3 weeks or something like that, and then they're like, I've not actually noticed or identified a benefit to this other than the fact that I accomplished that task. Well, I'm tired of accomplishing that task.
Right.
And so they actually get dissuaded. The other problem is it can be a massive psychological pain for them when they don't hit that task. You know you're fat, you know you're out of shape, you know you're in really bad health, and you know you're supposed to get to 10,000 steps a day, and something came up at work, or you got really tired today because you worked really hard yesterday, you had a great workout, and you only got to 3,000 today. God damn it, I tried everything, I changed my whole life, I gave up everything, and I'm still not hitting my steps. Oh, to hell with it, I'm just not going to do it, it's not worth it.
Right.
The carrot's too far away. We've pushed them too far. We've instead of saying, no, you did a great job yesterday, you had a phenomenal day. Oh, you had a bad day today, but okay, let's focus on the fact that you had a great day 2 days ago, and let's make tomorrow better. That's the win that needs for these folks, right? But if we constantly make them measure up, and we constantly make them measure up to their friends who are skinnier and healthier and get their things, and then it's sort of oh man, it's actually depressing now that I continually don't match up. I don't line up to you. It's the Facebook depression, right? It's the reason why people have a hard time having fitness goals when they have Instagram accounts, because sometimes I can look at a great looking girl or a great looking guy who's an amazing figure, and that motivates me. But for the vast majority of people, it demotivates them. Fuck, I'm never gonna look like that. I'm just gonna do this. So I'm gonna push away because it's too far out in front of me.
Right.
I think all those things combine to make those activities and those technologies actually very, very harmful for people, and definitely not worth their value.
It's also really distracting from the deeper kind of gifts that we get when we work really hard to accomplish something, right? It cheats us out of the learning process and connecting with the overall purpose of why we're actually doing fitness in the first place, right?
That's exactly right.
People always ask a D why they don't offer meal plans, right? Why don't you just tell me exactly what you want me to eat? And it's the same exact reason as people are failing with these different watches, because giving someone a meal plan only works as long as they have that meal plan. As soon as they go to a restaurant or they go to a holiday or they go on vacation and they don't have their structured meal plan, they have no education to fall back on, right? They haven't really learned about themselves. They just had a crutch. Take the crutch away and they're just as helpless as they were before starting. So by teaching them about themselves, what their body needs, then they're resilient in any circumstance.
No, I totally agree. And this is exactly why we formatted the book the way we did. In fact, the first version of the book, when the first company approached us about buying it, they said, hey, we would like you we'll buy it, but you got to come back and we want a chapter on every different technology. And they wanted us literally to write a book and a manual that went through all these different fitness and stuff technologies. And I was like, no, like I don't want to do that, because people will then learn how to use a Fitbit, for example, or Omega Wave or HRV, but they won't understand the concept. So in fact, I want to put as least amount of that detail about specific technologies as possible and just talk about these are the concepts. Now you can apply these concepts to any technology, from a biorad to a watch, to a GPS tracker, to a mirror, to Dartfish, to a technology that you can wear that measures muscle activation, from your spandex, and sends it to your phone, and that's all integrated over the course of a month, and it gives you a breakdown of how often you use each muscle group and all. Like the highest, and we could talk about all those details of all those things, but the point is, like, you wouldn't actually learn, because what happens when that technology gets taken over by another one, and another one? You ends up in what we call an arms race, and you're like, oh, okay, like, oh, the heart rate monitor was great, HV was great, but now the new thing is this one, so I got to get the next one, and then I got to reteach you all these things about it. But like the concept is the same damn thing every single time. So we would rather talk about these concepts and these scaffoldings and foundations, and it doesn't matter. Or you put the technology and take it out, the truth is going to be the same either way.
Right. So the majority of people listening to this show are in functional fitness or CrossFit or some kind of strength and conditioning. And I spent a lot of time before this show really thinking about what technologies they use. And I don't think there's I don't think many of them use like the common wearables like a Fitbit. What do you think? Sure. What do you think? And I honestly had a hard time coming up with what things they use in conjunction with their fitness. Do you have a sense of the either technologies or habits that these people are that they have or they're using that are kind of getting in the way of their long-term goals?
Yeah. Okay, I'll give you like a 3 off the top of my head, and you can tell me which one we want to expand on. I would say HRV tends to be pretty popular, or some sort of heart rate monitor, independent of HRV. Another one would be their cell phones and taking video of themselves training. And then another one I would say would be the other end of the spectrum, which I totally just dropped off the top of my head. What was I going to say?
You said HRV, video.
Like a diet, food, like weighing and measuring food scales, food apps, things like that. So any one of those three we could tackle. Which one's most interesting to you?
Let's go. Well, we might have to go on 2 of them, but let's start with video. What are the risk of too much video? Okay,
great. So now, back when you and I grew up, we didn't have these amazing cell phones. We could capture, the 4K slow motion video right on our phone. We can do any of these things. So it's really cool that we can do that. And let's say you're working and you're trying to improve your snatch technique, and you're using a video, you're videoing yourself every repetition, and you're going through it. Well, that can be useful. You guys can imagine all that. That's not difficult to think. But what would the potential problems be? Well, a bunch of them. Number one, any of you that have tried to get better at weightlifting, so Olympic weightlifting I'm talking about here, you realize that until you have a very consistent pattern, you can't coach every single repetition, because, maybe this repetition your hips came up too fast. That doesn't mean your hips are coming up too fast. That just simply means it happened that one time.
Right.
So if you then psychoanalyze and you go back, you're like, oh my gosh, my hips came up too fast. The Dartfish on my phone says I was at 118 degrees of flexion. I should be one coach says I want 123. Now you've completely outsourced feeling the barbell, right? I think the example I give in the book, I got the opportunity to be coached by Tommy Kono, years ago, and he's one of the greatest, if not the greatest weightlifter in American history. And he didn't even have to watch me. He was just listening to the bar and listening to my feet and sound and going, this happened, or you pulled too fast, or your second pull's out and your timing's off, because he could hear that. And eventually he gave me some guidance, and then he stopped talking. And I started asking, what happened to this one? And he'd be like, you tell me. I'm like, oh shit, I wasn't paying attention. I just did the rep assuming you were going to tell me what's going on. Well, the same thing is happening with your phone, right? I'm not really going to pay attention to what happens, because I know the video will just tell me what's going on. Well, if you can't actually feel that in the repetition, And then you don't have the ability to correct that mid-repetition or during the start. You are never, ever going to make an improvement in that movement. So the video absolutely can be helpful. So for example, if you're using with an athlete, you're using yourself and you're trying to help them, hey, your shoulders are too far behind the bar during your first pull. Like, well, it feels like I'm way out there. No, I'm telling you it's not. Well, I don't really understand what you're saying. And you can use the video to go, oh, I see exactly. Oh, okay, that can be very, very helpful.
Right.
But eventually the video has to go away. And you have to be able to be like, okay, can you feel what I'm talking about? Yes, I can feel. That's great. Okay, now, can you identify that error when I'm not here? And also, can you identify and fix that mid-workout or mid, repetition or mid in performance? Like this is like if you go to a weightlifting meet with really good weightlifters or any sport, doesn't matter. You'll see them come off the platform, go like, I didn't drive my right shoulder. I didn't punch. Like yeah, okay. Like, or you'll have the coach will give them one or two cues. Like drive tall or whatever, push through the floor, like whatever the hell thing you're doing. But that only works because if you spent enough time calibrating to go, yep, I felt that. I felt like I got heel heavy there. Okay, great. Well, we know our correction, right? Yeah, my correction is I feel tighter in my glute. Oh, okay, boom, there you go. Like, but that if we're continuing to rely on the video all the time to tell us our error, we're never getting to that next step of feeling it.
Right.
And the final step, of course, then we're going to have potential problems.
Right. Even in the middle of a set, right? Say you're training and you're in the middle of a set, you're not going to all of a sudden turn to a coach mid-set and ask what you need to improve, right? You need to know what you need to improve.
Yeah, absolutely. And like this doesn't even talk about what you brought up earlier, which is like, okay, well now how much of the benefits of your workout did you lose because you're so fucking worried about the video? Like you're not even paying attention. You're not really being present with what's going on. There's 1,000 other things you could be working on. And how about this time in between repetitions? Let's say you're doing some 10 sets of heavy doubles or something. So you do your 2, and in the time in between set 1 and 2, you're off screen with your video, watching the video back. How much are you not reflecting back on that feeling? Well, all of those repetitions in between are actually still repetitions towards movement. And you're missing out on them because you're screwing around with the video. So I'm not saying you can't ever do that, but there needs to be a balance. It's okay to do some time where you're going to go, boom, you're going to finish that set, and you're going to sit down, you're not going to talk to people, you're not going to text, you're not going to get on Instagram, you're not going to scroll through your phone, you're just going to sit there, and you're going to take 1,000 mental repetitions during the 2 minutes when you're taking a break.
Right.
And now the day, actually, you're going to do 20 physical reps and 200 mental reps. That's going to be very, very helpful for you in the long term. So you're not being truly present with the workout. You're not really understanding. And when a coach asks you later, like, all right, how did this feel when you got to round 7 or whatever? You're going to go, oh, like pretty good, I guess. Well, you don't know because you weren't actually paying attention. You weren't being present in that moment. You don't know what it felt like because you weren't really being there. So all those other problems can occur as well.
Yeah, so this just fits into the theme that when we become reliant on any tool, it takes away from our overall performance. And I'm guessing the nutrition one is the same exact way, because we can't possibly weigh and measure our food for every meal the rest of our life. And so if we become completely reliant on that, then as soon as we're in a situation where we don't have a scale or something, then we're setting ourselves up for failure.
Yep, exactly. Or even if I get tired of using the scale. Well, now all of a sudden what's going to happen is if I can't use the scale, therefore I have no idea how to eat, therefore I give up and I'm just going to go back to eating crappy all the time because I can't control it anyways.
Right.
Like, well, then how much did you learn when you spent that 6 months of weighing and measuring everything? You learned nothing. And it didn't actually transfer for you. It didn't project long-term. This was not actually helpful. So a better use of that tool would be, okay, let's weigh and measure everything or whatever we're going to do. Or maybe we're going to follow Rob Wolf's 7-day thing and we're going to measure which foods I respond to with my blood glucose best. Great, like fantastic, amazing. But can you start to feel that? Like, can you start to feel so you don't have to have your glucometer with you at all times, and every single time you try a new food the rest of your life, you have to prick your finger and measure whether or not you have a high glucose response. If you start paying attention and use that to tune in and go, I know what having a fasting glucose or resting glucose of 80 feels like versus 130 versus 170. And oh boy, like I tried this new thing here and oh man, it crushed me. Great. Now you're actually learning and you're starting to feel and learn, and this is more sustainable and it's a healthier practice. And I don't eventually now need that technology, because what's eventually going to happen is that technology For example, continuous glucose monitoring is available, and you don't have to stick your finger anymore.
Mm-hmm.
We can look at it infrared, so you can wear a ring on your finger, and it'll tell you your glucose at all time. So that technology is about to be in your face at all times. So we have to be careful of that, and not eventually just forgetting what things feel like.
Right.
Yeah.
So I know you've got to run shortly, so I wanna change topics briefly before we hang up. I love the end of the book when it gives Steven Kotler's top 10 tips for getting into flow state. And for those of you who don't know, Steven Kotler is one of the world's foremost thought leaders on flow state. And he wrote a book on basically on different states of consciousness called Stealing Fire, which is a phenomenal book. What I thought was really interesting is that several of the top 10 have to do directly with getting into nature. What is nature?
Yeah, buddy.
Yeah, what does that have to do with what effect does getting into nature have on our physiology, and how does that affect flow state?
Well, there's several ways. Stephen reached out to me when he was writing Stealing Fire, that second book, and I helped him, contributed a little bit to that book. And so we did kind of a quid pro quo. He wrote a section for my book, and I did a little thing for him for Stealing Fire. And I said, hey, man, you're the guy on flow. And I didn't prompt him at all. I just said, what are your tips of getting into flow? And it just turned out that just a tremendous amount of them came out to be wow, getting in nature is super effective. So whether you look at the actual physical scientific research, his personal experience, the people he's interviewed, and all these things, it turns out that this nature theme keeps coming back up. And one of the other guys that contributed to our book, Lenny Wiersma, who's a sports psychologist that I work with, he's on sabbatical next summer doing this really extensive study. He had done one previously on big wave surfers, and he had done one on elite marathoners going through, or ultra marathoners, and asking what's the self-talk that happens? What are the words you're using to yourself when you're 100 miles in, 175 miles in? What are you saying to yourself when you're about to get on a 70-foot wave? And he has some just phenomenal research and amazing understanding behind it. His next study is actually looking at these people who ski and they're mountaineers, and they go up. Well, what people used to do is they would get a helicopter ride. They would fly up to the top of the mountain. People would let them off, and they would ski down. Well, a huge percentage of this community is actually now spending a week or two transversing up the mountain and then skiing back down. And what they've actually found is they enjoy it so much more when they put that work in to get up the mountain themselves rather than circumventing it with the technology of the helicopter. And they think, they're man, a lot of it is the fact that we are actually just in nature and we're learning the mountain, and I understand the mountain so much better now. I am mentally so focused on what's going on, because if I take a misstep or we make a miscalculation, then this could ruin the whole thing. Mm-hmm. And so you have to be in flow, because nature doesn't give a flying shit about you. It doesn't care. Facebook cares, and there's customer service, but nature doesn't care. You mean nothing to nature. And we lose that a lot in our tech-driven lives of how, pale blue dot, like Carl Sagan said, how little we really matter. And it's good for us to be really calibrated back to that a little bit. And it's really hard for us to be continually focused in situations when we're surrounded with technology, because everything is continuous partial attention.
Right.
You're never really going to get into flow if you never really give everything up and focus on something. And nature can force us to do that a little bit. So those are some of the things that nature can do for flow, in addition to the physical stuff, which is, hey, when's the last time you actually really got cold? Or you legit had to make a decision here, and the consequences of your decision could mean death or not. Mm-hmm. Or hey, if you don't plan this properly and really think through the scenarios, you may run out of water, and this could be really bad for you, or get cold, or something could eat you. Nature still exists. Wild animals are still there. A bear will definitely eat you. It doesn't care. So there's just a lot of potential benefit to really reconnecting with that nature from just a variety of perspectives. So that Stevens was really focused on the flow aspect of it, but there's a lot of other things as well.
Another thing that he mentioned at least once, and that y'all talk about in the book repeatedly, is the importance of play. So is there a performance benefit to playing more? And can you, for instance, can you see can increased play lead to greater improvements in the gym?
Yeah, I don't think there's any question about that. If anything, you're going to explore areas that you probably would not have, and you may find more success than you expected in an area that you allowed yourself to get into because you were focused on play. Mm-hmm. You get into movement patterns as a very specific example. You get into removing the cognitive bias of performance. All right, so, oh my God, like what's a workout today? It's Fran. Oh my God, I hate Fran. Why? Because I suck at okay, well, what if we engineered a game that you did the exact same movement in, but now we're playing a game and you totally remove your headspace from what you're focusing on, and now you'll probably compete in almost the same or maybe even better performance because just the context that you put yourself in is now a play environment. Mm-hmm. So depending even on how you want to look at that word play, there's just so much there, and it's something that we are ingrained with for the first 15 to 20 years of our life, and then we completely lose all sense of play. Mm-hmm. There are times, like we talked about, where you need to have very specific goals in mind, and this is the point, but it is okay to go outside and what are we going to do today? I don't know. It's going to move. See what happens. I'm going to play. Well, that's fantastic. Not every single thing has to be a very specific guided structured workout. You can just simply go play.
I find it to be incredibly, like, no matter what it is, any sort of play, anything that's any kind of play without an end goal in mind, I find extremely rejuvenating, and I just have so much more energy afterwards.
And you'd be surprised how much harder you can go and longer you can go. Mm-hmm. Right? It's like, you can do this 15-minute workout and I'm waxed. It's like, okay, we're gonna go play soccer. Yeah, you end up playing for an hour and a half. Like you plan on 5 minutes and it's just so much fun.
Right.
Either. And the real reason I would describe it is it's not a physical difference. You didn't feel any better. But the difference is now you're there for a different purpose. You are there instead of checking a box off and exercising so you're not so fat or you're so in pain. You're actually playing. Why? For the sake of playing, because I'm having a great time. That's why. Mm-hmm. Oh my God, now the same workout with a different context has a completely different feel, and you don't feel like it's a punishment. You're like, oh my God, I got to go to the gym. Oh, I can't wait to get done with work today. I can't wait to get done with the gym. Now it's like, I'm so jazzed to go play. Like, this is what I'm looking forward to all day. We're running around having a great time. I had a phenomenal time. Oh my God, it's 9:00 at night. Holy crap, I got to get home and shower and eat and go to bed.
Right.
Great. Like, that's a win. That's something like you're like, I can't wait Tuesdays to go play softball or whatever you're going to do. Or the thing we're going to go play hoops or whatever we're going to do. And now you've made it. This is what we call a physical practice, right? So exercise is a part of that physical practice, but it should encompass a lot other things outside of just exercise or working out.
Mm-hmm. My last question for you. This is kind of this is something that y'all did touch on in the book. So what are you talk about solitude and the importance of solitude. What are the tangible benefits of spending time alone?
Well, I just got done talking. This is one of the things we talked a lot about on the podcast here on it. But the example I give is if you're continually bringing in information, you're not actually processing information, and you're not probably taking action. So the benefit of solitude, or at least stopping the inflow of technology, we have to understand. We spent a lot of years as a race, as a species, in a place where there was a little bit of information coming in, but it was almost exclusively processing of information. Now we've flipped that. You are in a constant stream of information. And so we've actually eliminated that second half. So when we do some of the solitude, it's just shocking how problem solving you come up with. Now, this thing you've been stuck on at work, or how am I going to handle this situation? If you just allow the brain to work, how many times have you heard this cliche, like all your best ideas come when you're taking a dump or when you're in the shower? Mm-hmm. Like, why? Oh, that's because you stopped bringing information in and you just let the brain work.
Right.
Like, let it do what it's very, very, very good at doing. And I have this example of, I have 2 shepherd mixes, 2 puppies, and they require just a phenomenal amount of exercise or bad things happen. I can't just take them for a walk in the morning. Mm-hmm. That's not going to work. They need to be run to exhaustion twice a day. they're bred to run for 12 hours a day, and you keep them in a house in Orange County, California, like it just bad things happen. So, I used to take them out and go for runs or do exercise or whatever, and I'd always have my headphones in. I'm like, well, I can't waste an hour. I got to at least listen to a podcast or an audiobook or blah, blah, blah. And then at the same time, I got some blood work done, and my vitamin D was pretty low, which is pretty embarrassing for a dude living in Orange County, California. Like, how the hell do I have low vitamin D? And so my gut reaction was, okay, I'll just start taking vitamin D supplements. And I was like, no. Like, the vitamin D is not the problem. The problem is your vitamin D is low because your lifestyle is not proper.
Mm-hmm.
Fix the problem, not the symptom. The symptom was low blood work. That was not the actual problem. I would have had to continue to take vitamin D the rest of my life. I needed to fix the problem.
Mm-hmm.
So I decided, like, okay, I'm going to take the dogs out more often, but I'm going to take my headphones out. And what I noticed was, man, I'm out jogging with the dogs, or I'm out running them around, and I'm so focused on them because they don't do well with other dogs, and you can't just like be passive with them. You have to be really on, or they're gonna, you could potentially have problems. They don't like kids, and like, they're sweet dogs, but like, I have to be very concerned with what's going on, or something really bad can happen. And I couldn't do that when I was listening to a podcast. And I'm like, okay, so I fixed the lifestyle problem, but that allowed me to actually take the headphones out. I'm super focused on just them, and like, I can't even tell you how many ideas. How am I going to handle this? How am I going to word this thing? Oh my God, this is exactly how I'm going to do it. So all these things fell into line, all the processing that happened when I allowed some solitude to actually happen there, and I could process, and I would run back and I would sprint back to the house, like, write things down, knock this out, or call somebody, boom, this is what we're going to do. I got a total idea. This is exactly how we're going to handle this. Boom, boom, I can't believe I forgot about this. Like, and I would just be on fire when I gave myself 20 minutes of just like off time. And it just like, it never fails, dude. It's fucking crazy. I've been on this amazing run with that, where I'm like, anytime I don't feel like doing work, I'm like, all right, I'm just gonna take dogs. We're just gonna go run.
Wow.
Like, I'm gonna go take you to the park, and I'm just like, I'll always come back just lit. So I think I went through those stumblings of problems because I was so focused on like, I gotta be effective, gotta get work, like work. But I didn't give myself the solitude to go like, well, back off and you'll be more effective anyways.
To actually process everything that's going on so you can use it.
Yeah.
If we don't have that time, then we literally can't. We're using such a small fraction of what we're actually taking in. I can't tell you how many times I've read a book and gone straight into the next book and completely forgotten what I had just read, right? Because I didn't take the time to process it and implement what I had just learned in my life. And
to sort of wrap up, and this good way to tie it all together is, oftentimes that solitude, that meditation space, if that's for you, I'm not a meditator, but some people get this. Some people get it, myself included, from my exercise. So what am I also losing when I'm plugged in when I'm exercising?
Mm-hmm.
That's the same time you cut that space out because you're so worried about your music, or you're so worried about filming for your Instagram post or for your coach or whatever reason. And you didn't allow that whole thing to happen.
Mm-hmm.
And now you've got to make extra time to meditate or extra time to do whatever stuff because you didn't actually get out of your exercise what you could have.
Right. Yeah, I love the parallels that has to really every aspect of life. Just this increasing self-awareness in general.
Yeah. Yep. Cool, man.
All right, brother. I'm going to let you go. Guys, check out Andy's book. It's Unplugged, Evolve from Technology to Upgrade Your Fitness, Performance, and Consciousness. Andy, where can they keep up with you personally?
You can check out my podcast, The Body of Knowledge. It's on Stitchers, iTunes, all that stuff. My social is pretty easy to find, Dr. Andy Galpin, Dr. Andy Galpin, and then my website, andygalpin.com, where I give away all my university lectures and all that stuff 100% free.
That's awesome, man.
Yep, it's all up there, and you can, want to learn some X-Phys or some nutrition or some muscle phys, whatever you want to do, man. It's all up there for free.
Hell yeah. Thank you, brother.
Cool, man. Appreciate it. Great to connect, dude.
All right. Talk to you soon.
See you, dude.